Hello, and welcome to this video where I'm going to be upgrading this old Game Boy Advanced. I'm going to be using a few different parts from the HiSpeedido store on AliExpress, not too sure to pronounce that. We're going to do a few mods including an IPS screen. It's the version 5 screen from the HiSpeedido store. We've also got a pre-cut case here, which is pretty much ready for the screen to drop in. You don't have to do any cutting, which you normally have to do if you're modifying an original shell. So this is a pre-cut shell. And then also that came from HiSpeedido is the IPS V5 Screen, some extra buttons and some screws. A few extra things that I'm going to be doing is we're also going to be upgrading the speaker here. So my problem that I have with the tri-wing screws is that they strip really easily, whereas these Torx screws they're much better at grabbing and not stripping. So we'll be replacing these with these as well. So as you can see, we've already dismantled the Game Boy Advanced here, the original. This is the original case. I've taken the screen out, removed the screws, and we're going to put that to the side for now. We no longer need the case. This is the important part. This is the motherboard. So you can clean this board with isopropyl alcohol, or you can use a small brush just to get any debris and dirt out, which I've already done. So this is looking pretty good and ready to drop into our new shell. So we'll put this to the side for now. We're going to open up the case that came from HiSpeedido. It's quite handy. They've provided the ribbon cables for both different types of Game Boy Advance. So this allows you to choose the right ribbon cable to step down to the right size to then connect to the screen. So it looks like this is the one we need for this Game Boy Advance. So also inside the package you get these 3 cables, which we will be using to solder to the motherboard in order to operate the on-screen menu, which allows you to adjust things like brightness, add overlays, and a few other features. So here's the screen itself. So on here you can see these 2 cables. These are the touch pads for adjusting the brightness if you choose not to solder this onto the motherboard. If you just want to drop it in, you can connect these adhesive pads to the inside of the Game Boy, and then on the outside you can touch them and adjust the brightness. These pads will only allow you to adjust the brightness, and I find them quite irritating because sometimes when you're playing you can accidentally hit the touchpad and it will put the brightness up or down. I recommend that you just simply remove these for now. So the next thing we're going to open up is the pre-cut shell, which I've got in like a blue and black see-through. Also within here you get the back sticker, which on the original Game Boy is like that. So this opens up. Oop, that's what always happens when you open these up. These will pop out. So I recommend you just take them all out. We're going to pop this out. And then we're going to just quickly test fit the screen. I find that the easiest way is to align it from the left first, and then it should all flatten off there. There we go. If you try and put it in from the right, I find it kind of jams here. We'll take this back out, and we're then going to take off the adhesive on the back side of the screen. And then we're going to drop the screen in. As we did before, we're going to lock it in on the left and then flatten it from there. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to upgrade the speaker quickly whilst we're here. We're going to line up our Game Boy Advance like this and the motherboard like this, and this is going to allow us to solder these cables to allow the shoulder button controls of the on-screen display. This is always a bit of a tricky part. I'm not the best solderer in the world, so do not take this video as a soldering guide. It's barely a Game Boy upgrade guide. So first of all, we're going to solder So we've now soldered the 3 cables to the screen. A piece of advice when doing this, do not hold the soldering iron on the screen for too long because you will scorch the screen and it will be visible from the other side. So don't hold too much heat when you're doing it, just a little bit of solder, heat, wire on, off in a couple seconds. This L is going to go to TP9. Now at this stage, I always say it's really a good idea to test your board. So what we can use is the old shell as a sort of test back. So the first thing we've got to do to get it ready, obviously, is connect the ribbon cable. So I've connected that to the new screen. We're going to connect that to the motherboard. Here we go. It's always a good idea to pop your start and select button in, just so that when we are testing the screen, we can hold down the select button. So that's it nice and flush. We'll switch it on the switch there, and then we're going to place this on top, and then we're going to place a battery and another battery. There we go. Now we're just going to test with a game, so pop the game in. We're going to use a screwdriver to turn the on switch on. So now we're going to test the backlit screen controls. So we're going to hold select, and we're going to use the left shoulder pad to go down brightness and the right to go up, and then together should open the menu, allowing us to add color modes, pixel effects, and a few other features. So we know that's all working, so we can sort of dismantle our Game Boy again and get it ready for putting together the actual final case. So we're going to take off this original one and we're going to flip this back over. So now it's time to get our buttons and slowly build back up the console. Buttons are fairly self-explanatory, you can't really go wrong with them. There's little sticks on the outside that sort of force you to make the right decisions. We've also got the little on-off button here. Another really important thing to remember is the on-off LED. I always forget that and have to rebuild the console. And we're just going to start to put them back in. Start and select switch. One thing I did notice when installing the back cover back on is that it wasn't lining up flush, and I realized it's because I'd missed this screw out. So I had to remove the rechargeable battery temporarily to put that screw in. As I said, I'm using these Torx screws rather than the tri-wing screws. You can get special screwdrivers for these with the Torx head. So I'm just going around the Game Boy now, screwing in the Torx screws. As you can see, I'm not getting any slip on these as I tighten the Game Boy down. The tri-wing screw I find strips really easily, whereas these Torx screws, you use this sort of star shape, means you can open up the Game Boy again really easily if you want to make any further modifications. So anyway, here's the final product. So you can turn it on, and then if we hold down the select button, we can reduce or increase the brightness. If we hold down select and both, it will bring up the menu where we can add pixel effects and color modes, do a factory reset. Looking pretty good. Let's just check the pass-through charging. So that works too. We'll install a game. So if we press into the menu, we can go through these color modes. Obviously I prefer one. There's pixel effects, which adds an overlay. Can't see it too well on this camera. So here's just a small list of tools that I used in this project. Some wire strippers, I used some clippers, I used a multimeter to do any tests along the way. The other really important tool that I've used is this screwdriver that has all the bits that I need to do Game Boy repairs. It even has the security keys to open up cartridges. I'll also provide a link for this in the description. The soldering iron that I've used is an Axion. This is also available on AliExpress. As you can see, it heats really quickly.